Hello and welcome to my poster presentation. I'm looking at supporting high need children with autism to integrate into mainstream EYFS through year 1, aligned with the HCP requirements and CERT's goals. I've used the Education Endowment Foundations process slide and basically mapped my own process onto that. So number 1, the Education Endowment Foundations recommends seeing it as a process and not just a one-off event. So the Gantt chart on that will show the process over one term, taking a particular group of children, it's early years to year 1 over one term. Use the plan, do review, we see how this goes, and it might be something that we could scale up throughout the school. This 15-minute SEND training for staff to begin to shift culture within the school, and that leadership climate needs to lead and to start bringing people with us via training, via modelling, via showing what works and having a compassionate approach in the early years. Defining the problem, primary schools are experiencing an increase in numbers of children with autism. The statistics are on there. Also, the Early Years Alliance highlights that 1 in 5 children with SEND are being denied access to early years settings. How do we shift this? How do we get people to be able to rapidly adapt to this new profile of children that we're seeing? Just to highlight the need for rapid adaptation is I've got 3 schools here that I've worked with, and one of these schools, the one with the lowest profile of children with high needs, has had maybe 1 high need child in September, 2 more joined in January. They're having an April intake. We're not sure what's going to happen there, but already they have 10% of children in their nursery with high need autism. So they're a real example of why this is useful. I've included this course because a colleague and I have recently qualified in it. We'll put it out to parents, we'll encourage parents to do it, and we'll see what the uptake is. Okay, time restraints means I have to be quite pacey, so I'm going to not be able to go through every bit of research on here. But the core thing is that an EHCP is informed by educational psychologists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, outreach autism specialists, parents and guardians, all people that are specialists in these children, and pupil voice where possible. So it's a hefty document. So I went through the section Fs of about maybe 20 EHCPs from nursery through to year 1 and pulled out all the provisions that were named in section Fs and put them in the first column. I then did a RAG assessment on the school. Red is it's not being met at all. So we have a column there of a child who has red, who's not actually in the building yet for various reasons, but I thought I'd include it. And we also, so red is it's not happening. Amber is maybe people have started thinking about it. Maybe there's sessions happen, but it's not consistent. It's not effective. Light green is beginning to get effective. Dark green is it's super effective. So EHCPs are formed by all these professionals. It's a really valid resource for interventions. Behind my head at the bottom is research further supporting those interventions because they are very evidenced. Fit and feasibility, as I've said before, taking the temperature of a school is really important. If an early years setting is overwhelmed, it's an argument to do this, not an argument not to do this. Okay, so readiness assessment. Even if there are competing priorities, this is pretty important core stuff for stabilising the well-being of staff and children in early years in year 1. Staff who are not ready, we can bring forward through the training. I think if we all move forward together, it makes it easier. If not, then there might need to be a more authoritative approach to that staff member. CERTs by Presence and Emily Rubin gives us a baseline for interventions. That baseline can be fed into provision map, and then we can track progress. Infrastructure, we need to buy all the bucket toys, keep them fresh. We need to make sure we've got the room, we've got to make sure we've maxed out on EHCP funding, CENIF funding, those sorts of things. There's an implementation Gantt chart there that shows the idea of flowing through the term. As we upskill, we're building a bigger and bigger package of interventions. Online support secure, we'll come back to that in a minute. And the role of the TAs are more likely to stay if they feel that they are getting trained. There's a recruitment crisis in special needs at the moment. Retention is really, really important. The TAs, there's evidence that support staff are more likely to focus on delivery rather than what they're delivering, and training will really get training in why, the why we do it, the why of everything, will make the interventions richer and deeper. Intensive interaction won't work if you don't understand the why. So here we have models of me delivering the intervention with Makaton, so that although I will model in real life, people can go and look if they want to really learn the Makaton themselves. We don't have a load of time here, but I really like the Lipitz and Gosner model. It helped me think through the Gantt chart. It helped me think through the process of everything. The boxes underneath are my comments on each stage, which it was a valuable process. We are now in support and monitoring. Now, this yellow poster I'm going to come back to, but support and monitoring, we've got this appreciative inquiry, we've got learning walks, we've got specialist ongoing training, coaching, and also obviously individual timetables for TAs, because the authoritative approach doesn't have to be directly from me, it can be within the structure of their day. You are supposed to be this place at this time doing this. Data-driven adaptations, we're using everything that's been involved by CERTS, SALT, OT, peer collaboration, that community of inquiry, bringing in Fisher's model at various points in the term so everyone can see where they are, reflect on where they are, reflect on their process, expert support. So we've got speech and language can support bucket train, and I'm very experienced in autism intervention, so I will be able to model a lot of this, but we can bring in all these other skills. By the way, my references are in this QR code here. Flexible leadership. So Fisher's model is really useful for looking at change and growth and promoting a growth mindset at CDWEC. Dilt's logical levels, also Tupman's, this idea of forming, storming, norming. Storming is useful, and sharing with the group is that there's going to be times of flux, there's going to be times when it's difficult, there's going to be some change. Could be helpful in everybody appreciating that it won't be forever. We've also got the GROW model, and a variety of leadership styles. As I say, I default to coaching, I think coaching, but there will be times where one needs to be more directive. There will be times where we need a more democratic approach. Goldman's got some really important, useful arguments there. And like, as I say, using timetables will reinforce it when we need to be a bit more authoritative, but without being confrontational. So this is the pitch, if you like, for senior leadership and other staff members to very quickly see the plan to have interventions, 15-minute training on interventions, and then modelling and coaching and building up over a term to quite a sophisticated day of intervention. So the key bits on this slide are the green chart is a school that I've been with for some time. So a lot of these interventions are now effective, they're in place, they're happening. The section where there's a little bit more blue are STENIF funded children. So already these children have benefited by the staff having these interventions in place, and seeming very normal to these staff is what you do as soon as a child comes in with additional needs. Awards and recognitions, some of these staff have become our sort of autism champions in the school. They're recognised as being particularly skilled. People are going to them. It's working. If you look at the certs below that, this is a progress of a child over 3 terms. So we've got the baseline that we can put into provision map. We can assess for, there's a few interventions here, so you can't just pick out bucket time, you can't just pick out intensive interaction, but we're seeing that it's working, it's useful. Continuous monitoring, we monitor other interventions in the school. This can be monitored similarly to an additional phonics group or another intervention that we have in the school. Provision map alongside school walks, all those sorts of things. Longer term planning, on the small scale, the children will be moved from having this structured for them to moving towards doing their own visual timetables, laying those out every day, and taking them off. Hopefully by year 1 some of these children will be doing that themselves. And is it scale upable? Well, not necessarily. I think I've been ambitious there in a borough or academy. I think maybe when this is seen to be successful lower down the school, people further up the school will be happier to adopt some of the visual techniques and those sorts of things, and the culture can be shifted as we go up the school. Okay, so that poster presentation was a year ago now for me, and since then I've turned it into a sort of a 7-week deliverable package, 1 day a week for 7 weeks, upskilling schools rapidly. So that I've made another poster presentation. So an initial audit using the Autism Education Trust's tools that I would do with the SENCO. We can go around with all of the setting, the staff, confidence, get a sense of the needs of the children that you're working with, and then build a day plan that creates efficiency in your interventions as well as impact. And again, with the SENCO, we will come up with our priorities, and based on the Education Endowment, the Autism Education Trust's framework for best practice in autism, and we'll come up with a training platform. So co-teachers can have half an hour a week training for 6 weeks on autism, and get a really thorough grounding and understanding. And alongside that, I can model and train in the interventions. It's all part of the same package. So the interventions such as bucket time, intensive interaction, sensory circuit, these things are embedded within most of the trainings we have, because it's very interwoven in autism. And teaching staff, I know there's time constraints in schools. If I can get teaching staff for half an hour a week, brilliant. If it needs to be fitted in to only your inset days, there's some flexibility there. If you only want teachers to have half an hour twice during the whole 6-week package, that's understandable. I mean, the more I can get, the better. And then the other element is this, quite often referred to as the missing intervention. It's the parental training. So we can run this presented as quite a bit of a coffee morning, a very structured coffee morning that will upskill parents of children diagnosed with autism over a 6-week process. I can offer the Early Bird Plus training, but I would need to get a colleague in. It's much more expensive. Whereas and also parents have to commit very, very thoroughly to 6 weeks. Whereas the coffee mornings, parents do tend to attend all of them, in my experience. But it is quite structured, but it feels less pressured, and it's very, very flexible. So if we know who's coming, we can tailor it a little bit, because I run it in collaboration with the SENCO, and we know the kids. After a few weeks, I'll know them quite well, and we can tailor the sessions to the different children. We can make sure that parents do go home with a very real visual timetable, have all that sort of practical things. We can show them how to make their social stories on ChatGTP, because it is possible. And this parent program is not just the missing intervention, it does a lot of different things. So if we've got beginner SENCOs, it upskills them pretty rapidly, and really brings home the importance of these homeschool relationships. If we've got experienced SENCOs, they get to bring the specialism in. It brings that trust in the school, which, if you don't nail down pretty quick, can become quite problematic. You need the parents to trust what the school's doing. And also, almost most importantly, they understand what we're doing in school more. And they can replicate it at home. We can send them home with some of the tools we're using, the now and next boards, the choice boards, even though what's in the bag. If parents have seen me model it in school, we look at different toys and which ones might be easiest to use for turn taking. So the parent group is an important element because it has that homeschool bridge. There is flexibility in here. If you didn't want one element of it, I could provide more of another element over a 6-week period. So I've got a QR code, got very fancy. This will take you to www.vickycarpenter.co.uk, which explains the course more thoroughly. It has testimonials. I'm working on some research evidence for the impact of the parents course. And there's also some references for the whole packet poster. Right, thanks, bye.